If you think betrayal always starts with a scream, you're wrong. Sometimes it starts at a funeral. Sometimes it starts when your wife cries in public, looks perfect in black silk, and acts like you do not exist. And sometimes, the man who hated you the most is the one who saves you after he dies. That was the day my life split in two. While everyone else cried, my wife, Celeste, chose silver-trimmed chairs for the funeral photos. There were 56 seats in the front section, but only 55 were filled. The empty one beside her had my name on it at first. I saw the card. Then I saw her lean toward the usher and quietly tell him it would be too messy if I sat there. Too messy. As if planning to leave me while burying her father was somehow neat and graceful. So I stood in the back. Not beside her. Not beside family. Not even beside distant cousins who barely knew my name. I ended up next to a dusty fake plant and a woman who smelled like old roses and once told me she had a short romance with Celeste's uncle in the 90s. The funeral program had my last name spelled wrong. Nobody fixed it. Nobody offered me a tissue. Nobody even asked if I was all right. That was the kind of place I held in her world. Not husband. Not family. Just tolerated. When Celeste stood to speak about her father, Arthur Vale, people leaned in like she was royalty. Arthur had been an oil billionaire. The kind of man who could ruin a person with one phone call and still sleep like a baby. He had never liked me. Once at dinner, he sniffed the air and said I smelled like fresh drywall. Everyone laughed except me. And now his daughter stood in front of that room in a black silk dress and knife-sharp heels, speaking about his strength, his vision, and his legacy. She did not mention me once. Not my name. Not one glance. Not even a quick look to prove I existed. Her tears came at just the right time. Not too much. Just enough to look sad. Not enough to ruin her makeup. When she finished, she sat down and leaned toward the man sitting in the seat that should have been mine. She whispered something in his ear. He laughed. A soft, smug laugh. I didn't know him. At least not yet. And maybe that should have mattered more in the moment. But what happened after the service, that was when the real story began. We were filing out slowly. People were hugging. Whispering. Pretending grief made them honest. Then Celeste dropped her handkerchief right in front of me. Not by accident. Slow. Careful. Like she knew I would pick it up. So I did. And when I bent down, I saw a folded paper sticking out of her purse. My name was on it. Bold letters. The case number. My throat closed. It was divorce paperwork. Already filed. Already prepared. Before the casket was even in the ground. Before the flowers wilted. Before the last fake tear dried on her face. While she stood there acting like a grieving daughter, she had already decided I was done. Disposable. Finished. In 2 days, she planned to collect nearly $250 million from her father's estate and hand me an envelope that said something cruel and polished like, "Quinn, I'm choosing myself." That was Celeste's style. Pretty words. Bloody knife. But Arthur Vale had one last move left. And when we sat down for the will reading, Celeste's face changed in a way I will never forget. She looked like spoiled milk in a room full of polished wood and rich strangers. I had not slept the night before. I stayed at my cousin Derek's house on his basement couch, staring at the ceiling and wondering if I should even go. She had taken our marriage, my pride, and whatever faith I had left in love. A big part of me wanted to disappear and never see any of those people again. But I could not stop thinking about that paper. Why would Arthur, a man who called me the porch gnome, and once asked if I had wandered in from a hardware store, leave me anything? I almost turned around at the driveway. They didn't even let me enter through the front. A staff member in white gloves smiled without warmth and pointed me to a side door. One last insult from the Vale family, I thought. Inside, Arthur's study was crowded but quiet. The room looked like money trying too hard to impress itself. Dark shelves. Heavy curtains. Gold frames. Thick carpet. Men with expensive watches and women who wore grief like a brand. Celeste sat in a gray dress this time, cool and sharp, the funeral softness already gone. And there he was again. The same man from the funeral. Flashy shoes. Arrogant face. The kind of smile that always looks half-finished because it's built from disrespect. He sat right beside her. She looked at me like she had once seen me in a hallway and forgotten why. I took a seat in the far corner. Then the lawyer came in. He held a thick folder like it might explode in his hands. He cleared his throat and said, "As executor of Mr. Arthur Vale's estate, I will now read his final will, signed 2 months before his death." 2 months. Right after the family retreat, Celeste insisted I skip. "You'd be bored," she had said then. I had believed her. Not anymore. The reading started with homes, cars, artwork, land, investments. It sounded less like a will and more like a king giving away pieces of a country. Then the room shifted. The lawyer adjusted his glasses. To my daughter, Celeste Elaine Vale, I leave $1 million to be held in trust and managed by Mr. Graham Pike. Celeste blinked once. Then twice. Her whole body stiffened. She leaned forward. "Excuse me," she said with a sharp little laugh. "Did you say 1 million?" The lawyer nodded. "Yes." "I think you missed a word," she said. "Was that 100 million? The room went silent. The lawyer looked down at the page again, though he clearly didn't need to. "No," he said carefully. 1 million. You could feel the air leave the room. Then he said, "The remainder of Mr. Vale's estate goes to another individual named in this enclosed letter." He opened a separate envelope. One handwritten page. Then he read, "If you are hearing this, Celeste, I am gone. And I have seen what you became." No one moved. "You stopped visiting unless cameras were around. You brought that man into my house as if I would not notice. You loved money more than your father. So you will not be rewarded for either." Celeste didn't speak, didn't breathe, didn't blink. She just sat there like the chair had turned to stone under her. Then came the final line. The lawyer looked up. "To the man who married my daughter knowing she might one day turn on him. The man who endured my contempt and stayed when most men would have run. To Quinn Mercer, I leave everything else." For one strange second I thought I had heard it wrong. Everything inside me went still. The room blurred. I could hear someone suck in a breath. Someone else shifted in a chair. The man beside Celeste shot up so fast the chair legs scraped the floor. And me? I couldn't move at all. I had not asked for this. I had never wanted a fortune. I wanted my old life. Messy. Sure. Normal. I wanted our stupid Sunday crossword puzzles. I wanted the old cat who hated everyone but slept on my feet anyway. I wanted the little habits that make a marriage feel real. But none of that mattered now. Because in one sentence I became owner of a $250 million empire. And the woman who had quietly thrown me away was suddenly looking at me like I was a ghost she did not know how to bury. I did not stay for the rest. I couldn't. The room felt too small. The walls felt too close. I needed air. I needed distance. I needed to get away before I either laughed like a crazy person or collapsed on the carpet. So I stood and walked out. Then I walked faster. By the time I reached the front hall, I could hear her behind me. "Quinn." Her heels hit marble in fast, sharp beats. I did not stop. I went past the statue-lined path, through the black iron gates and down the long road shaded by trees. For once I was not the one being left behind. I kept walking. I walked for over an hour. Not to make a scene. Not because I had nowhere to go. Because my body needed movement or I was going to come apart at the seams. The wind felt heavy. The trees seemed to whisper. Even the road looked like it knew something I did not. I didn't want Arthur's empire. I wanted time to go backward. I wanted to rewind 6 months and notice every warning sign I brushed aside. I wanted to stop myself the first time Celeste changed her perfume. The first time she changed her tone. The first time she looked at me with that thin little smile and said, "You don't understand the world I belong to." I wanted to protect the version of me that still believed her. By the time I got back to Derek's place, my legs were burning. I collapsed on the ugly fold-out couch in the basement, still wearing the same wrinkled shirt from the will reading. The room smelled like old coffee, warm laundry, and cheap cereal. Derek's son sat in the corner watching cartoons about squirrels flying helicopters. I barely saw any of it. All I could hear was Arthur's final line. To the man who stayed long after he should have left. He had seen me. Somehow, under all those insults and cold looks, he had seen exactly who I was. And now he was dead. That night I didn't sleep again. But this time it wasn't just heartbreak. It was panic. Real panic. I had grown up with discount shoes, second-hand furniture, and a mother who stretched one chicken into 3 dinners. I didn't know how to handle money like this. I didn't know estate law. I didn't know trust funds, boards, or wealth managers. What was I supposed to do with that kind of power? What if Celeste was right? What if I didn't belong in that world at all? She would know how to handle it. She had always known how to move through power without flinching. She could smile at people she hated and make them thank her for it. The next morning I went to work. Yes, I still went. What else was I supposed to do? My whole life had exploded, but my body still knew where to go at 7 in the morning. And there she was, waiting outside the industrial building where I still clocked in every day. Celeste leaned against her BMW like she was posing for a magazine. Sunglasses, tailored coat, perfect posture. Like she hadn't just blown up our marriage and watched it burn. "We need to talk," she said, sliding the sunglasses up into her hair. I kept walking. There's nothing to talk about, I muttered. But she followed me inside. Right past the front desk. Right past my confused supervisor. She cornered me near the vending machines, close enough that I caught the scent of her old vanilla lotion. For 1 weak, stupid second, memory hit me hard. I remembered waking up beside her. I remembered thinking I had found my forever. Then she opened her mouth. "You don't deserve this, Quinn." That was her first real sentence. No apology. No sorrow. Just poison served in a calm voice. I stared at her. "What?" She crossed her arms. "You think this is yours? You think my father meant this for you? He didn't. This is punishment. That's all. He was punishing me. You were just the tool he used." I laughed. Not because it was funny. Because if I didn't laugh, I might start shaking and never stop. "A tool?" I repeated. "Yes," she said. "A stand-in. A placeholder. None of this was ever really about you." I felt that one land in my chest like a blade. A placeholder. That was what I had been to her. Something filling space until something better came along. "That's how you saw me?" I asked. She tilted her head. "You were a mistake I let go on too long." I still remember that sentence. I think I always will. Not because it was loud. Because it was calm. People think cruelty comes with yelling. Sometimes it comes with perfect lipstick and a steady voice. Before I could answer, she reached into her designer bag and pulled out a thick folder. It was full of legal papers, highlighted lines, sticky notes, and tabs. It looked like a weapon dressed as office work. "This is a revised proposal," she said, almost bored. "A fair split of the estate." I didn't take it. She kept talking. "You do not need all of it. Let's be honest, Quinn. You do not even know how to manage this kind of wealth. You'll lose it. You'll embarrass yourself. This is a chance to avoid that." I looked at the folder. Then at her. "Is that a threat?" "It's an offer," she said. "A graceful exit. Before this turns ugly." Then she smiled. That fake, polished smile she used on waiters when she wanted free dessert. The same one she used on my parents years ago, when she wanted them to think she was warm and charming. I still didn't take the folder. My hands were curled tight at my sides, not just from anger but from shame. Because part of me believed her. A deep, old part. The part that had spent years being made to feel smaller. It whispered, "She's right. You don't belong there. You'll ruin everything. You'll prove them all right, asterisk." But there was another voice too. Small. Unsteady. No. It said, "Maybe I do belong. Maybe Arthur saw something she never did. Maybe staying when it hurt, when I was lonely, when I was mocked, meant something. Maybe quiet loyalty has value. Maybe being decent was never weakness." Asterisk. Celeste turned to leave. Her heels clicked with that smooth, trained confidence she used like armor. At the door she stopped and said, "You'll call me. You always do." Then she walked out. But this time I didn't call. Because for the first time in our entire marriage, I had something that changed the balance between us. Power. And Celeste had not changed her tricks. But I was not the one standing helpless anymore. By the end of that week, my whole life felt fake. I was still clocking in at the depot. Still eating cheap cereal in Derek's basement. Still wearing work boots with a hole starting near the side seam. Yet now I was also the legal heir to a giant fortune. And Celeste kept sending messages. Not emotional ones. Strategic ones. "Let's keep this civil. No need to make this public. Think about the press." The press. Like anyone in the world cared about the man who once fixed a dryer for free because the old woman down the street cried when hers broke. Still, somebody cared. Because on Friday, I got a call from one of Arthur's lawyers. Not the older one who read the will. A younger man. Nervous voice. Fast breathing. He asked if I could come downtown and review some extra paperwork. "What kind of paperwork?" I asked. "It's about the inheritance structure," he said. "You'll want to see it." The office was in one of those tall glass towers I used to walk past during lunch, thinking people like me only went inside to deliver packages. The front desk looked through me. I sat on a couch that probably cost more than my car and tried not to sweat through my shirt. Eventually, a woman in heels led me into a cold boardroom, placed a sealed folder in front of me and left me alone. My name was typed on the cover. I opened it. Most of it was legal language so thick it made my eyes hurt. Then I saw a section titled, Addendum Terms of Inheritance. That was when I learned Arthur had not just been cruel. He had been exact. Almost 40% of the entire estate had been placed in a locked trust under my name. But it was not automatic. There was a condition. That part of the inheritance would only become fully mine if I remained legally divorced from Celeste for 18 months. 18 months. If I got back together with her in any legal or personal way before then, I would lose that entire portion. And where would it go? A rescue shelter for abandoned dogs. I read it once, then twice, then 3 times. Each time I felt more stunned. Arthur had built a trap from the grave. A giant financial trap. Not just for Celeste. For me too. It was a test. A loyalty test wrapped inside a fortune. At the very back of the file was a scanned note in Arthur's handwriting. Asterisk Quinn, if you ever feel tempted to walk back into that cage, remember this. You were never her pet. She only knew how to feed you. Do not let her collar you again. Asterisk. It was rude. Sure. Strangely kind. And weirdly beautiful in the hardest possible way. The man who used to mock me for folding towels, like a motel maid, was now warning me to protect my freedom. All I had to do was stay away from Celeste. I should have felt relieved. I should have felt lucky. Instead I felt sick. Because now I understood why she had come to see me. Not because she missed me. Not because she loved me. Because she was afraid. She knew about the clause. That meant her soft voice, her visit to my job, her fake concern, all of it was strategy. Not love. Never love. That evening she called. I let it ring. Then again. I let it go to voicemail. The next morning her car was outside Derek's house. Same expensive car. Same long coat. But no folder this time. She looked tired. Her hair was messy. Her eyes were red. If I didn't know her, I might have thought she was real for once. I just want to talk, she said softly. You always do, I answered. She looked down at her hands. Then back at me. So, you read it? I didn't answer. Her lips tightened. It's disgusting, Quinn. What he did to us. That clause. It's sick. He's mocking us even now. I stared at her. Maybe he's mocking you, I said. That landed. I saw it. A small crack in her face. The first real crack. I never wanted to hurt you, she whispered. I laughed again, dry and tired. You filed divorce papers before they cleared the flowers from your father's funeral. She said nothing. I kept going. What did you expect? That I'd stand there smiling while you took the money and ran off with Mr. Shiny Shoes? For a second she looked like she wanted to cry. But nothing came. And that was when I truly saw it. It wasn't that she was holding the tears in. It was that they were not there. The feeling was not there. Maybe it never had been. As she turned to leave, she pulled something out of her pocket. A photo. Bent at the corners. On a blanket by the lake. Plastic wine glasses. Her head resting on my chest. I kept this, she said. You weren't just a stepping stone. But I didn't take it. I didn't even reach for it. She set it on the porch rail and walked away. I left it there. That night, I looked up the dog rescue named in Arthur's clause. There were over 300 animals there. One of them was a pug with one cloudy eye and a crooked tongue. His name was Captain Beans. And I stood there staring at his photo on the shelter website, realizing that if I let Celeste back into my life, that one-eyed dog would get a giant chunk of money meant for me. I never thought my dignity would be guarded by a lopsided pug. But there it was. Clear as daylight. Celeste was not trying to win me back. She was trying to break the trap her father had built. And I was done being part of her plan. The photo stayed outside for 2 full days. Rain came that first night. Not enough to destroy it, but enough to make the edges curl and the ink soften. By Monday morning it was still on the porch. Faded. Damp. Sad looking. I picked it up then. Not because I missed her. Because I needed a reminder. Not of love. Of what she threw away. You would think that would be the end. That Celeste would retreat into her glass and marble world and leave me alone to stumble through my strange new life. But Celeste never left quietly. Especially not after losing to someone like me. 3 days later I found an envelope in my mailbox. No stamp. No return address. Just my name in thick red letters like someone wanted to make sure I felt watched. Inside was 1 sheet of paper. 2 lines. There's more you don't know, Quinn. Be careful who you trust with Arthur's past. No signature. No clue. At first I thought it was a prank. Then I thought of Celeste. But it didn't sound like her. She did not do mystery. She did not hint. She demanded. She pushed. She controlled. That note felt different. It felt like a hand from the dark. That night I spread every estate paper across Derek's basement floor and started reading. Really reading. Up until then, most of it had just washed over me. Big numbers. Legal words. Too much. Now I read like my life depended on it. That was when I found the envelope marked Miscellaneous Communications. Inside were printed emails from Arthur's private server. Most were boring. Staff reminders. Schedule changes. House maintenance. Then I found a thread with the subject line, Celeste request, urgent. The message came from someone named R. Whitmore. The words were cold and simple. Asterisk, we reviewed the request. As per our original agreement, document destruction cannot proceed without signatures from all named trustees. At present, only one signature has been received. Destruction cannot continue until the second is secured. Asterisk. I read it twice. Then I went back to the start of the chain. And there it was. Celeste had asked for a document to be destroyed. The file name was listed clearly. Addendum C, disqualification clause. My mouth went dry. She had known. She knew about the clause before Arthur died. She had tried to erase it. My hands shook as I printed every email. At sunrise, I called the estate attorney. The second I explained what I found, the line went very quiet. Not long, but long enough. Mr. Mercer, he said carefully, those documents were reviewed after Mr. Vale's death. The clause remains fully valid. No changes were made after the last notarized version of the will. So she tried to remove it, I said. She contacted us, yes. That was all he would say. I hung up and just sat there. She had not only left me. She had planned around me. That photo on the porch. The visit to my job. The soft tone. The old memory. All of it had been cleanup. Damage control. Strategy. That night she called again. I let it go to voicemail. Her voice had changed now. Still controlled. Still smooth. But tighter. Colder. Quinn, listen. This has all been awful. But you know this was never really about you. He did this to punish me. You were just standing where the blow landed. I deserve part of this. You know I do. You do not really want to watch me suffer, do you? I listened to that message twice. Then I saved it. Not for court. Not for blackmail. Just so I would never forget who she became when she thought I was not in the room. But the hole went deeper. Much deeper. In those estate records were access logs, room records, old security notes, server files. And buried in them, I found a video entry dated 3 days before Arthur died. Library E. July 10. I stared at it. Library? I didn't even know there was a library on the property. Celeste had always said that wing was off limits. Family archives, she had told me once. Not for guests. Yes, that was what I was in my own marriage. It took almost a week to get permission to access the file in the room. Calls. Identity checks. More papers. More waiting. A small part of me kept expecting someone to stop me and say there had been a mistake. That I still did not belong there. But this time the gates opened. The guards nodded. Not as Celeste's husband. Not as the man who once fixed a broken pool heater during a family party. As Mr. Quinn Mercer. The sole heir. The library was in the west wing, upstairs. A place I had never stepped foot in before. It smelled like dust, leather, and old power. An estate worker met me there. His name was Elias. Quiet man. Thin face. Watchful eyes. He handed me a small brass key and said only one thing. He wanted you to find this. That sentence made my skin prickle. The room was lined with books no one had touched in years. A cracked globe sat in one corner. A thick desk faced the windows. Heavy shelves ran floor to ceiling. Then Elias showed me something behind one of the shelves. A hidden drawer. I never would have found it alone. He gave one small nod and walked away. And I stood there realizing Arthur had planned all of this. Every step. Every layer. Every trap. And Celeste had no idea I was standing in the room where her control would finally crack for good. Inside the hidden drawer was a velvet box. Inside the box was a flash drive. On the lid, in Arthur's neat handwriting, were the words. Library 7 out of 10 final record. It weighed almost nothing. But it felt heavier than anything I had ever held. I watched the file alone in the study behind locked doors and drawn curtains. No music. No cuts. Just raw footage from a security camera above the library fireplace. The video started with Celeste. Not crying. Not grieving. Not gentle. She was pacing the room like a storm, one hand gripping her phone, the other slicing through the air. Arthur sat at his desk. So tired. Come. Then Celeste's voice exploded from the speakers. You do not get to do this. Arthur said nothing. You think you can die feeling good because you ruined me? Still nothing. You're really giving everything to that man? The one who fixed your sink. I leaned closer. My own heart was pounding. Arthur stayed quiet. Then Celeste snapped louder. He is pathetic, Dad. He does not belong in this family. He does not belong in our world. He can barely tie a tie right. This is humiliating. Arthur finally moved. He leaned forward just a little. You made your choices, he said. His voice was cold and flat. Celeste stopped pacing. So what? She shot back. You were dying anyway. He lifted a hand to stop her. And yet, he said, I lived long enough to change the will. Her face changed. That perfect control cracked. Then Arthur spoke again, slower this time. You thought you could play both sides. Walk away clean. Keep your freedom. Keep the money. Avoid the cost. But that is not how this ends. Celeste stood frozen. Arthur kept looking at her. You treated love like currency, he said. But Quinn never asked me for anything. Not once. He never insulted me. Even when I gave him every reason to. She stepped back. Her face looked empty and furious at the same time. Then she said it. This is not about care. It's about revenge. Arthur didn't blink. No, he said. It's about preservation. I am protecting what I built from you. Then the screen went black. I sat there staring at my own reflection in the dark monitor. No triumph. No joy. Just a hollow ache. Because some stupid, wounded part of me had still hoped there was a corner of Celeste that had once truly cared. But no. I had heard her say what I was to her. Pathetic. Embarrassing. A mistake. A man who didn't belong. She had not lost me. She had thrown me away. And now she wanted the money she thought should have followed her out the door. I thought that was the final truth. It wasn't. Because hidden beneath more papers in that same drawer was another envelope. Seal. Labeled in Arthur's hand. Private, read only after death. Inside was a handwritten note and a medical record. I did not open it right away. My hands were shaking too hard. I hate suspense. I always have. I spoil movies for myself just to skip the waiting. But this felt different. This felt like stepping toward a ledge. When I finally unfolded the paper, the writing was in all caps. Hard strokes. Neat and severe. Asterisk Quinn, if you are reading this, I am gone. And you chose not to return to Celeste. Good. She never saw your strength, but I did. Asterisk. I swallowed. Then I kept reading. Asterisk, this is not a confession. It is a suspicion. I do not believe my death was entirely natural. Asterisk. Everything inside me went cold. Arthur continued. Asterisk, I have no proof. Only instinct. Before the family retreat, my health was stable. My doctors agreed. After that weekend, something changed. Chest pain. Dizziness. Weakness. Asterisk. Then the line that made my stomach twist. Asterisk, Celeste brought me a special tea. Said it would cleanse me. I vomited the first night. I never drank it again. Asterisk. I had to stop reading. My fingers felt numb. What father writes that about his own daughter? I forced myself to continue. Asterisk, I said nothing. What father accuses his daughter of poisoning him? But if I did not go peacefully, promise me this. Do not let her walk away untouched. Asterisk. I set the letter down and stared at the desk. This was not a legal accusation. It was not evidence. It was a dying man's fear. But after the video, after the emails, after the way Celeste moved through everything like conscience was just another thing to style around, I could not brush it away. Then I remembered something else. Elias had shown me the server logs earlier. Just in passing. Who entered what room? At what time? I found him downstairs. When I asked to see them again, he studied my face. Then I showed him Arthur's letter. He didn't ask questions. He just nodded and led me to the terminal. That was the moment I knew Arthur had left more than money. He had left a trail. And I was finally ready to follow it. We pulled up the retreat weekend logs. Arthur had kept private notes on access to his wing. There it was. Celeste. 6 visits to the kitchen. 2 to a guest room. 1 to the library. 7 entries into Arthur's private suite. All between midnight and 4 in the morning. 7 times. I looked at Elias. How often were guests allowed in there? He answered without hesitation. Never. Only by direct invitation. That was enough. Arthur would not invite Celeste into his private suite after midnight. Not once. Certainly not 7 times. Would it prove murder in a court of law? No. Would the police arrest her over a dead man's suspicion and room logs? No. But it told me what kind of fear she was carrying now. Her sudden interest in me. Her calls. Her visits. Her soft voice. Her fake regret. It was not grief. It was not love. It was fear. Fear that I would figure out how quickly Arthur's money became available. Fear that I would stop being the quiet husband and become the one man holding the full picture. So I did something she never expected. I called her. She answered on the first ring. Like she had been holding the phone in her hand all day. Quinn. I saw the video, I said. From the library. And I read the letter. Silence. Then, almost too quiet to hear, she said, "You weren't supposed to find that." "No," I said. "Just like you weren't supposed to be sneaking into his room in the middle of the night." She inhaled sharply. "You do not understand what you're saying." "I understand exactly what I'm saying." There was a pause. Then her voice changed. The mask fell back into place. Cold. Measured. Dangerous. "What do you want?" And there it was. No apology. No shock. No outrage. Just business. Leverage. Bargaining. That was Celeste. She did not believe in guilt. She believed in negotiation. So I gave her nothing. "Nothing," I said. "I'm not asking for money. I'm not promising silence either." Her breathing got louder. "Quinn. No hush deal. No protection. No shield," I said. "You get to live with it. Every day. Every knock at your door. Every call from a lawyer. Every question in your own head. You'll smile in public, but inside, you'll keep wondering if this is the day everything falls apart." For the first time her voice cracked. "Quinn, please." I ended the call. And when I lowered the phone, I realized something had changed in me. Not anger. Not revenge. Strength. Real strength. The kind she had never believed I had. And I was not done. I never planned to become rich. I never planned to spend my mornings with estate attorneys and my afternoons reading room logs like a detective in a bad movie. I never imagined standing in a courtroom half a year after my marriage broke apart, listening to lawyers argue over surveillance records, trust clauses, destroyed documents, and herbal tea. But Arthur, cruel old Arthur, had always liked poetic endings. I did not rush to the police. I waited. I let Celeste think I might be bluffing. I let time work on her. Let fear settle into her beautiful apartment beside her wine glasses and polished floors. While she waited for something to happen, I started building a case. Not criminal. Civil. Truth-focused. Clean. I hired the same investigator Arthur had trusted for years. He already knew the family. Already had his doubts. He pulled together dates, receipts, purchases from a luxury wellness shop known for detox powders and herbal mixes. The same kinds of products Arthur had mentioned in the letter. The same kinds he took, then suddenly stopped. Those records went to the estate lawyers. Then things moved fast. Quietly. Efficiently. Celeste received formal notice of civil action tied to tampering with estate procedures, attempted destruction of protected legal documents, and manipulation of inheritance terms. The case did not accuse her of murder. It did not need to. It accused her of enough. In court, she arrived dressed like she always did when she wanted to control a room. Sharp suit. Hair perfect. Chin lifted. Calm face. But the calm did not last. Because facts are stubborn things. The judge reviewed the will structure. The trust. The clause. The emails. The access attempts. The library video. Arthur's written statements. The request to destroy Addendum C. Celeste's lawyers fought hard. It didn't matter. One by one the pieces held. I sat there quietly, just like I always had through years of Vale family dinners and insults and little public humiliations. Only this time, silence was not weakness. It was witness. By the end, the judge upheld the will exactly as Arthur designed it. The trust stayed locked under its terms. The clause stayed alive. The digital evidence stood. Arthur's written concerns were admitted for what they were. Not proof of murder, but clear evidence of family breakdown, distrust, and motive behind the estate protections. And Celeste? Her remaining share was frozen. Then rerouted. Not to me. To the alternate beneficiaries Arthur had named for serious moral breach. Charities. She appealed. Lost. She appealed again. Lost again. Each ruling cut deeper. And every time the story stayed the same. The father who stopped trusting his daughter. The husband she dismissed. The truth she tried to bury. People expected me to celebrate after that. Maybe buy a huge house. Maybe vanish into Europe. Maybe start dressing like the men who once smirked at me from across Arthur's dining room. I did none of that. I rented a small place by a lake. Quiet water. Simple furniture. Clean air. Then I adopted 2 older dogs from Captain Bean's rescue. Not the pug himself, though I met him once and he snored like a broken accordion. I chose 2 older dogs nobody wanted. One limped. One was half blind. Both were sweet in the careful way hurt things are sweet. I started helping at the shelter every Saturday. Funny how the clause designed to keep Celeste away led me somewhere peaceful. I learned things I never thought I'd need to know. How to manage an estate without becoming proud. How to sit in a lawyer's office without shrinking. How to trust small kindnesses again. How to sleep without checking my phone every 10 minutes. How to hear silence and not assume it means danger is coming. People still ask me if I miss her. That question is harder than it sounds. I do not miss the lies. I do not miss the coldness. I do not miss the way my whole body used to tense before she came home, never sure which version of her was walking through the door. But sometimes I miss the woman I believed she was. The woman in the lake photo. The woman who laughed into my shoulder. The woman I built a future around in my head. Then I remind myself of something important. Missing a lie does not make it true. Missing the mask does not mean the face underneath was kind. A few weeks ago I got one more envelope. No return address. Just plain paper. Inside was one handwritten sentence. You destroyed everything. I looked at it for a long time. Then I dropped it on the floor. The dogs got to it before I threw it away. They tore it into wet little pieces and wagged like they had done something useful. Maybe they had. Because she was wrong. I did not destroy everything. She did. Arthur saw it too late. I saw it almost too late. But in the end, I did not burn my life down. I saved what was left of me. And for the first time in a very long time, that was enough.